Hello everyone and welcome back to Russell's Movie Reviews and welcome back to the first annual Christmas special. As I hinted at earlier, um, or last week, when I did the Frosty and Rudolph special, or the Christmas specials, the Rankin Bass versions. I don't think I did, but I might have hinted at what the next two reviews are. And, well, here we are. So, the first review I'm doing today is the 1988 Christmas classic that I don't think that many people would talk about that much when compared to all the other Christmas classics. And that is Scrooged, released in 1988 and directed by Richard Donner. Now, my experience on this film has been pretty pretty normal, honestly. I think the first time I saw this movie was a few years ago when I think Voodoo had Scrooge for you could watch it for free, and we all watch. I watched it, and I was instantly hooked. Um, and then obviously, years later, I have the Blu-ray, so now it's just standard Christmas watching for me personally, and it still is. This is still personally one of my favorite Christmas movies of all time. And like I said, it's a film that I don't think that many people talk about that much when compared to, um, obviously comparing it to other Charles Dickens. Because this is technically a spin on the Charles Dickens classic, A Christmas Carol. And I don't think that many people talk about this movie when compared to some of the other versions, like Mickey's Christmas Carol. The Muppets did one. I think, um, the Muppets one had Michael Caine in it. Who you guys may remember him as being in Jaws: The Revenge. Uh, any there's been other versions, like the 2010 motion captured one with Jim Carrey. Um, But overall, I just think that all of them overshadow Scrooged. And like I said, this isn't an exact retelling of the story. It has its own, you know, this is a twist on the Christmas Carol story, but the basic plot is virtually the same. Um, but anyway, I just think that a lot more people should talk about this movie, and I guess I will discuss my points over the course of this review. But anyway, let's go over some of the details. So this was made on a $32 million budget. Domestically, it made over 60 million, and worldwide, it made over 100 million. Um, and this was directed by Richard Donner. Now, if you guys are a fan of my channel, you guys may remember Richard Donner. He directed both Superman the movie and the Goonies. Um, so this came after Scrooge, being released on November 23rd of 1988. So he already had Superman the movie, the Goonies under his belt, um, and I think this is probably one of his better directing films. But anyway, let's get on to the plot. So Frank Cross, played by the fantastic Bill Murray, is a wildly successful television executive whose cold wait, I gotta get into the mindset. So anyway, redo. Frank Cross, played by, like I said, the fantastic Bill Murray, is a wildly successful television executive whose cold attitude and cruel nature has driven him away from the love of his life, Claire Phillips, played by Karen Allen. But after firing a staff member, Elliot Loudermilk, played by Bobcat Goldthwait, on Christmas Eve, Frank is visited by a series of three ghosts who, who gave him a chance to reevaluate his actions and right the wrongs of his past. So, like I said, structurally this is the same story as, any version of Christmas Carol. But they changed some things around so that it's unique. And I think overall, I think this is one of the better versions of the Christmas Carol story because it's something new with the story and it's not just a generic retelling. Now, I will admit some of the versions out there are better than this film. But I still think that this is a very good version of the story. Um, So, anyways, let's go over the cast. So, we obviously have Bill Murray playing Frank Cross, who, if you guys, again, are the fan of the channel, you guys may remember Bill Murray as Peter Venkman from Ghostbusters 1 and 2 that I discussed on the Halloween special this year. Um, Now, after Ghostbusters, he took a 4 year hiatus from acting to spend time with his family, and I think he only had cameo roles in like the Little Shop of Horrors remake with Rick Moranis. Um, but he never really started anything major after Ghostbusters until Scrooge. This was his big comeback, and I think personally, it's a well-deserved comeback because he does great as as Frank Cross. Um, and he pulls off the kind of like the Scrooge character. He's cold. He's bitter. Someone who was a friend of his a long time ago. Uh, you know, has passed away, like Scrooge, and from that he's become a cold and bitter person until he is visited by that person and is cited by three ghosts and eventually, if you guys know about the Charles Dickens story, he changes his ways. Um, and I think um, that Bill Murray is probably one of my favorite interpretations as of Scrooge, even though he really isn't Scrooge. Like the same characteristics as Scrooge. Um, but I think he does great in the performance, and obviously, um, I think him taking a break from acting for 4 years really kind of showed what his comedy really was. I mean, yeah, Ghostbusters he was comedic, but he also had to take some serious moments. Whereas in this film, he's really just playing up the comedy. And I'm not dissing Ghostbusters for that reason. I actually think that mixing the comedy and the serious moments brings off a better performance from Bill Murray than in this film. But I think as a comedic actor, I think that um, him just going straight comedy for this film instead of in Ghostbusters, where like I said, he has to balance both being the comedic character, but also having to do again serious moments. Um, I just think that if you're looking for someone who can, if you're looking for Bill Murray who can balance both the comedic and serious moments, go for Ghostbusters. If you just want the comedic side of Bill Murray, watch Scrooge. Um, but anyway, we have Karen Allen as Claire Phillips, who's the love interest for Frank. Now, if you guys are film buffs like I am, you guys may remember Karen Allen from certain films with a who wears a fedora and has something that looks like a snake. Uh, yes, I am referring to Indiana Jones. Because she played the love interest for Indiana Jones in both Raiders of the Lost Ark and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Um, and in this film, I think she does a great performance with the material. Um, and I don't really remember her from really anything else besides Scrooge and the two Indiana Jones films. I think she might have played a role in Starman. I'm not exactly sure. I think I'm not. Um, I'm not exactly sure. Um, but anyway, moving on, we have Alfred Woodard as Grace Cooley, who is the, I believe, secretary of Frank Ross. Um, you could see more of his cruel side with Grace near the beginning and kind of the middle of the film. And there's a scene at the end of the film that I will bring up when I get to my favorite scenes. Um, and um, I think that really cements the relationship between both Frank and uh, Grace. But I think overall, I think she does a good job with the material that is given to her. Um, we have Bobcat Goldthwait as Elliot Laudermilk, um, who I believe is one of the, because Frank Cross is the CEO the of the network, and Bob and Elliot is like one of his executives. Um, and when um when Elliot kind of, because they show Frank previews of what they will be expected from the um from what are going to broadcast this year. And one of them is obviously the retelling of Scrooge. Um, and when Frank puts on his version of Scrooge, which I gotta admit is pretty funny, that um, he thinks that Scrooge is basically just like a whole bunch of blood sucking creatures trying to hunt down Christmas presents. And that basically has nothing to do with the original story. But anyway, he shows that uh promo, and Elliot kind of is like, what, like, what does that ad have to do with Scrooge? And Frank just straight out admits like nothing. And when Elliot disagrees with him, Frank responds with firing him, and you see the his psychotic, like Elliot's psyche just slowly draining away until near the end of the film when um I'll actually discuss about that when I get to favorite scenes, but just seeing the other, like the downfall of Elliot throughout the whole film is just, it's funny but also sad at the same time. Uh we have Robert Mitchell as Preston Rhinelander, and I believe he is the CEO um of the, like the actual like big CEO of the TV network, and he only has a few scenes throughout the film, but overall I think he did a good job with the performance or in the material that is given to him. Um, we have John Glover as Price Cummings, who after this film he went on to star in Gremlins 2. Um, which personally I haven't seen it, but I've heard that it's a step down from the first film, but it isn't bad. Um, but anyway, I think he probably one of the more weaker parts of this film. Especially with the fact of um, it's implied. I never really got this from the film, but from when doing research, I found out that people saw the fact of him like like trying to take Bill Murray's job, and I just think that it's just a little bit weird. Anyway, um yeah, I just thought that point where, because people mentioned that, and I'm like, I never saw that in the movie, and I guess it never really is outright stated. It's just more implied, especially with what he does throughout the film. It really does seem like that, and it's just I don't know. It just never really gelled with me. Uh, we have um, we have two of uh, we have Bill Murray's brothers. I don't know why that was so hard for me to say. Um, as they both appear in this movie, we have John Murray as James Cross, who is basically Frank's brother. He does fine with the performance that he is given to him, and um, uh, we have Brian Doyle Murray. Jesus Christ, Brian Doyle Murray. Jeez, I don't know why that was so hard for me to say. As Earl Cross, which is Frank's dad in the flashback scenes, or not the flashback scenes, but when Frank travels to the past and he sees his father, he's played by Brian Doyle Murray. Um, Speaking of the Ghost of Christmas Past, he's played by David Johnson. So the ghosts in this film are portrayed differently as in the original story. I believe the Ghost of Christmas Past was. I don't exactly remember the ghosts. I don't exactly remember all the ghosts, but I think that the Ghost of Christmas Present was like a Santa Claus kind of person, but a lot more youth. Like he had like a brown beard, and he seemed like a younger version of Santa. Um, and then I think the Ghost of Christmas Future was straight up just death. Um, which I think if it was death, they kept the Ghost of Christmas Future the same between both the original story and this. Because it just seemed well in the okay. I'll get to that in a bit, but in this film, the Ghost of Christmas Past is a New York cab driver who had it seems uh like the poor man's version of a DeLorean where you have like the timestamp, like right, not exactly, but it's like you have like the year, like, and it's like a speedometer, and um the Ghost of Christmas Present is a fairy uh who is played by Carol Can, and I gotta be completely honest, the Ghost of Christmas Present is an absolute bitch. Because she's like, for no reason, starts beating the shit out of Frank Cross. Like, she first kicks him in the ball, with knees him in the balls, actually. And then throughout the course of her scene, she's like slapping him. She even smacks him with a toaster at one point. And she's like, God, I'm like, God damn. Can this, like, if you're trying to show Frank what it is to, like, have, like, a good spirit, don't beat the shit out of him. Because that's probably gonna make it worse. Um, the Ghost of Christmas Past is probably my overall favorite. I think I think all the points that each ghost goes to um is quite interesting. So the Ghost of Christmas Past, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, goes back to I believe 1955, and you see Frank as a young boy. I think in the context of the in 1955, sorry, he is 4 years old. Um, and um, you see his dad, again played by his brother. You see him just thing is bang on the floor, and he's like, "What is this?" And he's like, "It's a pound of meat." So apparently Frank's parents were so poor that they couldn't even afford a pair of clothes. You had to get a pound of meat. Um, and then I think it travels to, I think, 2 points in the 1960s. Because I know the second and last point that the Ghost of Christmas Past takes him is in 1969 when Frank was playing Frisbee the dog. And he chose to go out to dinner with his boss instead of Claire. And I think it goes from 1955 to 1967 when he was just an employee at the TV station, and then 1969 is obviously the final one where they kind of him and Claire like break up, um, and then um, uh, the Ghost of Christmas Present shows up, and she takes Frank to Grace's place, and he finds out that her child, one of her children, is mute. Um, where so this is another change between this and the original story. In the original story, you obviously know Tiny Tim, and I believe that he's coming down with a sickness, and but in this film he has become mute, and he doesn't speak because he saw his father die a few years ago. Um, and he's never talked to her ever since, which I think honestly the the child being mute in this film is way more sad than having Tiny Tim being infected with a sickness. Because granted, this is the original. Granted, the original story takes place around, I believe, the 1950s. So not really many medicines were out at that time. So sickness, like if you had like the flu or something, it was taken a lot more seriously. But granted, if you're just taking this as like in the present time, someone being like having the flu, it's easy. Just take the vaccine or like just take the medicine. Someone being mute, it's it's a lot more challenging to take care of, and if at certain stages, it's basically impossible to change, which I think it's a more sad and like in a more reasonable way to get Frank eventually onto like becoming a good person. But yeah, he travels to Grace and his family and sees her child mute. Um, Her child isn't actually called mute. I forgot what the kid's name is, but like the child that is mute. Then we cut to, I believe, his brother, where you see earlier in the film when he's trying to figure out what each employee is gonna get. You see him request that his brother will be given a towel when other employees are getting VCRs. You see Grace actually go to the phone and make a dial up, presumably to you know get all the presents checked out. Um, and when he opens it, it's actually a VCR, and you see Frank like kind of flip out, like, "What the hell? I didn't send him that." And he's like, "Oh, it was Grace." And then I'll mention this later. It eventually comes full circle. And then the ghost. I think there might be. Oh yeah, because he goes to the homeless shelter after the Ghost of Christmas Past, and you see one of the homeless guys. There's three homeless people that come up to him and they start having kind of conversation, and the final thing that he comes across is, um, you see, he falls down into like a sewer thing. I don't exactly know what that is, but you see one of the homeless guys there, uh, and he died, or he has died from, um, like he froze to death, and then finally goes to Christmas Future. He shows him, um, that I think, Grace's the mute child is thrown into a mental asylum. Uh, Claire uh, has become basically the same person as Frank in the beginning. Like at the beginning of the film, he's cold and cruel. Claire basically becomes the exact same person, and then finally, he's shown his. He presumably thinks it's James's funeral because he sees his wife there, but then he sees James walk up and he goes, "Who the hell is this?" And he goes to the front of the casket and it's his name. So you find out that really it was only his brother that went to his funeral. No one else showed up except for the priest. Which I'm like, God damn. And then that's like the last straw for him. And he's like, I'll make everything better. Just please, I don't want to die. And then he gets popped into the real world. And he's like, I'm not dead. Yes. And he's like, and then it gets to the final scene, which is actually one of my favorite scenes, which I'll go more into depth when I get to my favorite scenes. Um, and yeah, that's really the end. Like, that's the whole film. So now let's get on to favorite scenes. Um, and the fun fact that I have, and the music, and then we get on to my final rating. So favorite scenes. Favorite scene number one would probably be the initial encounter between Frank and the first kind of ghost. Now we obviously know that in A Christmas Carol, that his older work colleague shows up as a ghost and warns him that three ghosts will appear, which will be the ghosts of past, present, and future. Now, in this film, I think it was his old CEO that he worked for. Uh, which it's ironic that his last the this because it doesn't really explain this in the actual story, but really, if you, this guy died in, like, he's wearing what he died in, and it was his golfing uniform. And apparently he explains that he was trying to set up a tee and like play golf, and he suffered a heart attack. And I'm like, and then and he's obviously the one to explain to Frank that three ghosts will appear, and he says that the first one will arrive tomorrow at noon. Um, and um, and um, I think really that's like the first sign that like it's like, oh shit, this is like, to Frank it's like, oh god, is this real? And then over the course of the movie, it becomes more and more real to him. Because at first he's just like, this is all in my head, and he starts seeing sign. Because like you see, when his original boss appears, he the door is basically exploded, and his little bar setup is absolutely destroyed. But when he wakes up, you see that all the like the glass cups and all the like the drinks are there, and the door isn't destroyed. So he's like, this is all in my dream, like this is all in my head. And he obviously has the encounter with the first ghost, or the ghost of Christmas past. I think honestly his the ghost the Christmas past, like when he's going to the flashback scenes, those are probably my least favorite scenes, or like the least favorite flashback, like to out of the three ghosts, what he shows to Frank, it's probably my least favorite, because again, it's just kind of showing the viewers why he is such a douche, and it's just like, well, I think it's better. I mean, yeah, granted, we're going off of the Christmas Carol story, so we obviously need to figure out kind of why he was set like this. But especially with this film, I just think that it's just really unnecessary, and I think that not knowing how he became a douche is way more impactful to what the end or what the final scene kind of shows. Um, and then as my second favorite scene would probably just be the whole encounter with the Ghost of Christmas Present, from their initial encounter to each place that they go to, which is to Grace's place, to the party that James goes to, and I think it is. I'm trying to remember. I forgot. I already forgot what the last one was. Um, Jesus Christ! I'm losing it. Oh my God. I'm like losing the memory. Um, and um, and um, just their no whole initial scene I thought was great. All right. And my third favorite scene would probably be again kind of like with the Ghost of Christmas Present. The Ghost of Christmas Future. That whole sequence is great. Um, and then finally, I think my final favorite scene is the final scene of the film, and where he stumbles onto the broadcasting of Scrooge, and he just basically breaks down all of the points, or like everything that he has learned about, the whole giving James the towel and Grace giving him the VCR, to how like he finally understands the meaning of Christmas, and then it all comes full circle when the mute child comes up, and he just goes, "Did I miss anything?" Um, and he just goes, "God bless us all," and you're just like, "Oh my God, did it come full circle?" And then uh, finally Claire appears, and then it all just ties up the loose ends, and like it's just like a happy ending overall, and then that's really where the movie ends. Fun fact, to kind of mention it, is that Bill Murray actually references his cameo from Little Shop of Horrors in the movie's closing song. So yeah, during the end credits, he says a line. It's kind of hard to like uh understand what he's saying because of like with the people singing in the background, and um it's just kind of like a little bit difficult to understand what he's saying, but apparently what he says during with the line that he says is actually from a line that he said in his little cameo in Little Shop of Horrors, which was released 2 years before this film. um Really quickly before I talk about the composer, I just want to talk about the whole media releases for Scrooge. um I think honestly, this is one of the movies that isn't treated as well on home media releases as it should be. Kind of like True Lies, where it was never released onto DVD until 1999, I believe. Actually, let me check. Yep, 1999. Um, and the DVD was a pretty bare bones release where it only came with the theatrical trailer. Then in 2011, they came out with, well, back in I think 2008, 2007, there was announcements that there was going to be a like a 20th or 30th anniversary edition with like all these special features. Um, but that never came into fruition. Eventually, it did come out with a Blu-ray release in 2011. And unfortunately, it only, in terms of special features, it only comes with the theatrical trailer again. And unfortunately, that's what that that specific disc is what is used on every single media release on Blu-ray for Scrooge, including this 2017 release. So there's the front, the spine, and the back. I actually got this during Black Friday, but anyway, as I open it up, there's the DVD. You can even look. I'm trying to angle with the camera. Here, you can see right there. Or actually, yeah, wait. Okay, right here. See it. Oh, right there, 1999. Then I'll flip over to here. And you can see right there. I'm going to try and keep my camera, or I'm going to try and keep my hand steady so you guys can see it. But it says 2011. They haven't come out with a new Blu-ray edition of this film since 2011. And if you guys want to find out more about the history of Scrooged on home media, I will link a video down in the description below of another reviewer who also reviewed Scrooge and talked about its home media releases. That would be in the description below. And yeah, so anyway, let's talk about the music. Uh, the music was done by Danny Elfman, who obviously did a lot of scores in the 80s and 90s, and the majority of them were with Tim Burton. Like with the first two Batman movies, like Batman and Batman Returns. He also did The Nightmare Before Christmas, Edward Scissorhands, and I think this is one of his better scores that he did from the 80s and 90s era. Because around the 90s, that's when he really started reusing cues. Like, especially, like, around, you could notice, like, really tell if you watch this film and then watch Batman Returns. You could tell that there's a very similar sounding score to it. I don't know if the actual soundtrack got a full release and it's still in print. I know there's obviously been a pop album that coincides with the film when it came out. But I think there might be. You could probably look it up on eBay and stuff. Um, but yeah. So yeah, that's really it. So let's get on to the end card. All right. So, final thoughts. Um, like I said at the beginning of this review, I think that this film is an underrated Christmas classic that I don't think that many people talk about. It's not an forgotten Christmas movie. I mean, people talk about this movie, but I don't think they talk about it as much as the Breaking Bad specials, The Nightmare Before Christmas, and any version of the Christmas Carol story that's been translated into film. Um, but I just think that uh, this is a real kind of hidden gem within the Christmas catalog. That I think a lot more people should talk about. And I'm gonna give this film wrong side. I'm gonna give this film an 8 out of 10. I personally really enjoy this film. That I think a lot more people should check out. So that is it, guys. Stay tuned for my later on today. Stay tuned for my review of Jingle All the Way, starring the Terminator and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And you can go and click on the channel profile right here. Make sure to hit that subscribe and like button and hit that bell icon. And check out over here for my previous two reviews, which I believe, are the two Breaking Bad specials that I did earlier last week. And stay tuned for, again, later on today, where I'm going to be talking about Jingle All the Way. Anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this review, and stay tuned for next time. Live long and prosper. Out.